So rolling into your mid-30s, is this what you expected your life to be?
I don't know if I ever really had like I was never the person that had like, this is what I'm going to be or what I'm going to do. I mean, I've never been sure. I'm still not sure. I'm still figuring it out.
So, I mean, is being a woman in farming, is that something that's important to you and you kind of have some passion about, or is it kind of irrelevant?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought I'm one of 3 girls, and I always thought it was cool when girls do things that are, more of the guy thing to do. So like the girl drummer is always a badass to me, like, so that's just something I've always thought was really cool, is when females can do things that, is typically, most things are typically male, but that are typically male. So so I do think that's cool. And I really look up to, there's so many other female farmers that I look up to, seeing, and doing things and being the head of their farms. Most families that we know that are farming couples, they, at least one of them has an off-farm job. Typically that's the man, because typically they're going to make more money. And so I know a lot of farm families where day in and day out, the female is the one doing the farming. And I look up to them so much. And it is hard work. And so I think it's pretty cool to see women be the head of that and be the head of their farms and keeping up with the rest of them. I feel like you should be proud, but I mean, are you proud that, you and Joe this is your job. You don't have an outside job. That's true. This is our first year. This is our first year of not having any off-farm income, which is really pretty cool.
What was that change like? Was there a change? When was it? From a psychological perspective, was it kind of we're confident?
No.
Or was it?
Nope.
Uh-oh.
It was not a conscious. We did this decision like we do most decisions, and it wasn't a conscious like, okay, let's sit down and crank some numbers and figure out like when it is that we can be at this point. It was not that at all. I have had full or part-time work for since we've been farming, and before that, of course, and. My most recent job was flexible. It was in retail, so I was very lucky to have a job where I made a decent income, where we had health insurance, and then I was able to work part-time. And being in retail, I didn't even work weekends for like half the time I was there. And my company was really great about working with me and allowing me to do that. And I think last year I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And in retail, to say, hey, I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's the only days that I work, and get those days is amazing. So I was very fortunate that I had that flexibility in the past. This year, when we had kind of talked about potentially 2016 spring that I would leave my job, and we found out almost a year ago exactly that I was pregnant. So last January 2016, found out that I was pregnant, and still kind of had that intention in mind of quitting in the spring, and then I think I ended up quitting in March. So it was not a coordinated, smart move, probably. We also last year, not only did I leave my job, we had no other off-farm income either. We previously had other businesses that we were bringing in income that was able to kind of balance out the farm stuff. So 2016 was our first year. Probably not smart. Like, hey, we're gonna have a kid. Let's quit our job and like rely on our farm completely. Probably not the smartest move. But
one I have to interrupt you, but I have a lot of respect for it.
Yeah.
And I think people need to have more respect. For
Respect
people
me.
that it does. It's hard because I think maybe it's not the smart move. I understand the phrasing.
Yeah.
But I think it's too harsh.
Yeah.
Because I think it is I don't want to even call it a dream, but it's a being that control of your destiny.
Yeah, it was kind of a commitment. I think it was one more huge commitment to our farm to do that. And Joe talks about 2016 being like one of the hardest ever, which I think we say that every year.
Yeah.
But for me, honestly, it was one of the easier ones, and partially because I wasn't trying to fit in so much into one day. And being pregnant, he was much lighter on me, and the workload was a little
how nice
easier.
of him.
But we talk about it all the time. I basically, I was still last year in 2016 working about what I was working on the farm in previous years, but I wasn't having to also fit in working too. So, in the past years, we would, I'd have to go to work at 2:00. And so I would be like, well, you're going to Charlotte, so you should do deliveries before you go to Charlotte instead of making a whole nother drive into Charlotte. So it was, getting up, getting, chickens fed and eggs washed and orders packed and get that into Charlotte and deliver and try not to be late to work and not be stressed out that whole time doing it.
Right.
So, I would tell coworkers, I think I'm always really, I downplay myself, something my dad has always said about all three of us, you girls never have any confidence. I don't know what we did wrong, but like you're always saying you can't do stuff or you didn't do that much. But, I would tell coworkers, I typically do like 6 to 8 hours of work before I would go to work at 2:00. I would, I liked working that later shift so that I could get up and get stuff done on the farm. If I worked a morning shift at work, well, I'd come home by the time my hour drive, I might be home at 4 or 5 o'clock. For me, that's, time for cocktails and making dinner. I wouldn't then start doing work at home. Whereas if I, was going in at the 2:00 shift, I would get a lot of work done at home and then go to work when I'd normally just be, I'd be at home watching television and drinking wine. So not being productive. So
right.
I'm lucky that I had that. And in 2016, for me, taking work out of the picture for me allowed me to have just a lot more. I didn't feel as rushed and as much being on my plate. But it also, last year for most of the year, we had a full-time employee, and for a good part of the year, we had 1 to 2 part-time employees. So that also helped a lot because I, although I did still do a lot, I wasn't holding up as much work. So when we, before being pregnant, we thought, oh, this will be great. Dani and Joe will be 2 full-time people because in 2016, Dani's going to quit her job. And so there'll be 2 full-time farmers. And then we'll have like maybe another full-time person and like we'll have all this and it'll work. And then it was like, oh, you're pregnant. Okay, that dynamic just shifted. And how does that work now? So we're still, and it was actually easier being pregnant than it is now that she's here. It's harder. I can do a lot less now than I could when I was pregnant. When I was pregnant, she was there. She was in me. I just did whatever I wanted. I could go and do and whatever. Now that she's out in the world, we have to figure out a whole new dynamic is how do Dani and Ella get things done? How are Dani and Ella helpful? So
was it kind of a different experience for you being pregnant and working on the farm? And, as I have 5 kids and I do feel, and I'm sure every woman in whoever would watch this would laugh or find it condescending of me to say, but I do get jealous a little bit of that time. Yeah. Because that was the time that I did not like at all.
The pregnancy part.
No, not really. Some of it.
Joe too.
The first one, you're like, oh, everything's so exciting. Yeah. But after the third one, you're like, okay, yeah, I understand it's a cantaloupe today. Yeah. Or a lime or whatever. But there is that bonding and that experience that you guys have and that I find so special. And I, and maybe I'm romanticizing it a little bit, but I in my image of you of, in the summer, kind of just doing some stuff around the farm, and you're pregnant, and that's kind of is there a little? I mean, what's that connection like?
So Joe, I feel like most of the pregnancy was like ready for her to be here. Yeah. We didn't know it was a her at the time, but kept ready for her to come out. And me, I'm really fortunate. My pregnancy was very easy. I had a very healthy pregnancy. I felt great the whole time, so I was able to work and do and felt great. I remember there being one time early on in the pregnancy where I was collecting eggs and it was like a yucky day like today. And so it can be a little aromatic during certain times of year. Right. And I remember early on in the pregnancy collecting eggs going, if I was going to have morning sickness, like this would do it. If I get to that point, like I'm not going to be able to do this task anymore. Right. And with our full-time employee last year, he pretty much did all the bird chores all year. I mean, there were times, and even still now, I'm so not involved. I don't know what's going on, and but it was. I had a really great pregnancy. I really enjoyed being pregnant. It was a good time for me, and thinking about. I think because maybe it was my first, and because we didn't know, if it was a girl or boy, a lot of the like romanticizing and over imagination of it just didn't really happen for me as much.
I think that's fantastic, because when you start doing that, all of a sudden the expectations start creeping in.
Right. And I said that to a lot. I said, maybe it's because we chose not to find out the gender. Maybe it's because I had an easy pregnancy. But, I think, controlling your urge as a parent to not start deciding what your child's going to be, even in just a romantic way. But, it's like, oh, what if she, like as I'm doing things like, oh, one day she's going to do this. Like she may hate farming, She may, I was thinking recently, and I think I mentioned to Joe, like there could be a point, because it happened to me, like she wants to be a vegetarian. Like we raise and slaughter chickens. That is what feeds our family.
Right.
There could be a point that she wants to be a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for 12 years and now I slaughter chickens. Like that could happen. That's how do you deal with that? So she's going to be her own person. There's going to be things that, she's going to hate about living here and doing this work. And we've talked a lot about how, how can we make it so that she doesn't hate this?
Right.
And to me, what I've come up with, I don't know if it's true or not, but, we have a neighbor whose son will say, I woke up and I had to pick beans before going to school. And when I got out of school, I had to do this, reading Animal Vegetable Miracle. I love that book now, even more being a mom and seeing how they incorporated their children. Now, it was different because it's not a working farm. It was for their family. But incorporating your children into it by allowing to let them make some choices and decisions.
Right.
Let her sit
let
down
them own a piece of it.
Let her sit down with Joe and look at seed catalogs and say, I think those tomatoes are pretty. And Joe is probably going in his head, that is never going to work. Right. We are not going to make any money off of that tomato. But you know what you say to your daughter? We're going to get some of those seeds. Right. We're going to plant some of them. And those are your tomatoes. Yeah. And you're going to help grow them. And you're going to be a part of that. And you're going to see how that happens. And, we have one breed of chicken. You think that other breed's pretty? Let's get a couple. Let's see how it goes. Those are your chickens to take care of. And instead of it being what I would like to instill in her is that this is our family business, but it's something you get to be a part of. We get to do this together. We get to make these choices and make these decisions. And, there's going to be so many things that she's going to love about it and so many things she's going to hate about it, but that's the same way we feel.
Right.
But hopefully, just instilling in her the joy and passion of being a part of it, whether or not it's something you want to do for your living, that, that food is such a big part of everyone's lives and everyone's day, and being able to see it from the start and be a part of it from the start and just enjoying that process is what I want to instill in her, is finding, and then as she gets older, finding her joy and her passions and pushing her towards those things and helping her develop who she is and what her passions are, is really important to me, because I feel like my parents really did that for me. Joe's parents really did that for him. And we were able to then try out those things and get to a point where we feel comfortable who we are and what we're doing and enjoying it and instilling that in her, whatever that is. And hopefully her finding some joy in what we've decided to do.
Yeah, I mean, the empowerment, that's the key, I think, to all of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I'm sure there was a day, was Joe always in farming when you first met him? No,
so when we first met, we both worked for a local organic natural grocery chain. I was doing marketing and events, and he came on board to, we were opening a new store, and he came on board as the manager of the wine and cheese department, specialty department. And so he was training in the store I worked out of, and so that's how we met. And then the store that he was working at eventually, I was doing store openings in our area, so I would spend a lot of time down there. But when we did start spending time together, he did say that he moved from Boston to Charlotte to buy land. But more in a sense of, I'm gonna have a house and it's gonna have a backyard, not a little garden there, And I'm like,
that I can get behind.
Yeah, and that was, in my head, my parents always think it's funny that, they've raised a farmer and that, I am who I am and I do what I do now. One, I was a vegetarian for 12 years, but, my parents are from New York City. We, we're not farmers. I didn't grow up on a farm. I don't even know when or if I ever went to a farm. But, I kind of always said, oh, maybe I'll have like a cute little cabin with a lake. And, I romanticized it just like everyone else. And it'd be nice to grow my own food. And, I went to the Fish concerts. I was in that, so I was like, yeah, like maybe I'll grow my own food and have this like quaint little house out in nowhere and like whatever. But then, other times I'd be like, yeah, I want to make sure that wherever I live, I can walk to a bar and a grocery store and a coffee shop and, to get a muffin in the morning. So I had, both of those things going on, extremes, right. So I kind of knew that he had that side of him. And I never at any point would have thought like when we met, whatever, 8 years ago or whatever that was, I never would have thought that we would be where we are today. It's just...
Was it a crazy I'm sure Lomax was kind of the first, okay, maybe he's doing it. Because we all talk. We all talk a big game.
Yeah. So we found out about my dad is a dedicated Charlotte Observer reader from cover to cover for as long as I can remember. So he found out about it and, I guess knew that Joe kind of had this was a few years into dating and Joe looked into it and called and at that point they had a waiting list. And, luckily he's not like me because I would have just not done anything about it. I probably would have sent one email and they would have been like, we have a waiting list. And I'd be like, cool, like someday I'll put my name on the list.
I'll call you back when I'm 40.
Yeah, like it never would have happened. Joe put his name on the list and then you had to take a class and he got into the class. Well, most people don't take all those steps. So he ended up getting the point where he was, he took the class. So the next thing you know, this guy hasn't taken the class. This hasn't taken the class. All 40 of these people haven't taken the class. Wow, that guy all the way down there, he took the class. He's next. So within no time, he had a plot there. At that time, I think I was probably in culinary school and, I wasn't really that involved. I was working full time and going to school full time. And in the beginning, I would go out there every now and then and piddle around and then he became more and more dedicated to it and spending more and more time there and doing projects with other farmers and doing projects with farmers that were out there and then he wanted to quit his job. And then then it just got more and more serious, but I could really tell that when Joe does something, he goes all in. He does not, whereas the exact opposite of me. I'm kind of like, well, I'll put my toe in and then I get bored with it, whatever. So when he goes all in. And that's exactly what he did. He did that the same way he does everything. And, I tell people all the time, we had never had a garden before farming. We lived in an apartment. We didn't have one way to mow a lawn. We move out here. It's like, not only do you need to have a lawnmower, you got to have all kinds of equipment. Like we have 5 ways to mow a lawn now, let alone like not one. So, I could tell pretty quickly that it was something, although something he had been talking about since he was 6, it was something he was really passionate about and that he wanted to go all in. And we are very, very lucky that we were and are in a position that we didn't have any debt, that our bills were very low. So it was like, now's a good time to take a shot at it.
And I'm sure it was fun for you to kind of watch him evolve.
Yeah. I love, we both are so hard on each other. And, I love to watch him talk to other people about stuff because I'm like, wow, you really know a lot about this, and it's really cool because because we're in it day in and day out, there are times it's hard, but it's really cool to see him now talk to and see so many of the up and coming Lomax guys come to him for advice, and he is constantly sharing with them, and how there are now people who are seeing and calling him a mentor when we still consider ourselves beginning farmers and still figuring it out. And so it's really cool to see how he went from just a little boy who was dreaming of what his grandfather had to where we are now, and it is all because of him. I mean, this was all happened because of his dream when he was a child.
And the follow through.
Yeah.
And that's the I think the things we gloss over when we see a trajectory of someone who, put his name on a waiting list.
Yeah.
Exactly. Getting through it and going and so what's your role, or do you have a role? Do you define roles one day and say, I'm not doing that tomorrow?
I often tell people that I'm more of a farm hand than I am. Yeah. I'm still figuring it out. there's so much that I don't know. And with vegetables, there's so much that you need to know. There's so many little minute things, and the plants require so much patience, which is not my strong suit. And you know, I'm getting better and more understanding of it. But you know, he has at least 2 full years on top of me before me doing anything. And then, you know, again, for a long time, I was still spending a lot of my time off farm. Even when we moved here, I was, you know, I was working full time for the first couple of years. And, you know, I was going to farmers markets. I've been doing a farmers market for probably the last 4 years. But the growing side of vegetables and produce is not my expertise. It's not something I'm knowledgeable about, and I'm still learning. And, you know, I remember a couple of years ago having some volunteers come out to help us with some project, and somebody asked something to me, and I said, oh, I don't know. You might as well, I'm one of you. You need to ask him. And I constantly say to people, it still happens all the time. Someone asks me something and I say, oh, that's a Joe question. I just don't know the answers. The birds are a lot easier. It's a lot more finite. It's a lot more, you know, you feed them, you water them. This is the kind of feed, you know, I can tell you about our feed. I can tell you how we raise the birds. You know, I'm confident in doing that. You know, I can take care of the birds day in and day out. I can explain to people what we do and how we do it. You know, I'm confident and comfortable butchering and slaughtering birds every week and all that kind of stuff. You know, the vegetables, it's a lot harder. It really is. You know, as much as we complain when we're in season about the birds and that vegetables, there's just so many more pieces to that puzzle. And I'm not knowledgeable or an expert on it. I still get my assignments at the beginning of the day, just like, you know, whoever we hire this year, I'll be right next to them, still figuring it out, still asking Joe every, you know, hour, you know, to come check this out, make sure I did this right. So I'm still low on that learning curve of that.
Now, do you do a lot on the business side?
We don't really have a business side.
Well, you do. I would have to disagree.
So one of the things, you know, I think because of, you know, one of the things that I've kind of always been more over, I guess, is our wholesale accounts and you know, finding restaurants to sell to and keeping up with them and sending out that wholesale email and doing those deliveries and getting that in order. So that's kind of always been something that's I've been, you know, if there was a boss of that would probably be more of something that I was in charge of. And this year, I took over the quote unquote books of the business. Although I kind of fell off towards the end once Ella came, it was really nice because in the past, Joe would sit down in like January with his giant box of receipts and like everything spread out everywhere and you know, be putting it all together. And so this year I started, you know, compiling everything month to month. Yeah. And what was really cool about that to see was a number of things. Those first few months of being in the red, which was like, you know, and interesting enough, it wasn't January. It was like February, March, and maybe even April that we were in the red. And I remember at one point going, it was definitely April, because I remember at one point saying to someone, like, we are a whole quarter into the year and we haven't made $1. You know, we have, you know, each month has been in the red, which means, you know, January that we were in the black doesn't really count because that's all gone.
Right.
But being able to see month to month what our numbers were, so that this year we were much more conscious of our spending in December and January. Because we knew that lean months are coming. And so having those numbers being done earlier and then being able to look at them month to month was really huge, I think, for us, being able to be more conscious of our spending. And it's very easy to spend early on in the year as a farmer, because you can get price breaks on buying all of your chickens at once. So we could, you know, save, you know, how many ever dollars on buying our 3,000 chickens at once and paying for them up front. Well, we don't really have that extra money right now. So, you know, Joe and I had lots of conversations about this, and we ended up ordering just a few months of birds just the other day instead of all of them. And we've actually worked with this hatchery for a number of years, and they ended up giving us the price break, knowing that we're still going to get to that 3,000 mark because we've been working for them for so long. We never asked them that, you know, so. But we were willing to pay those, you know, when we did the math, it was like, you know, pennies that we're, you know, per chicken that we're saving. But that's means that we are now not taking as much out of our account to pay for stuff. And then what has happened the last several years is we have to take money out of our personal savings to fund the farm for a few months.
Right.
The last 2 years, we've been really lucky. We've paid ourselves back, and that's awesome. Years before that, we weren't paying ourselves back. And this year, we may possibly not have to borrow from ourselves, which is huge.
Yeah.
And especially now as we're having a kid, we need to start saving for ourselves and our family. When I had a part-time job, we were, they had a 401k, my work, we had that going. Last year, we didn't put any savings away, but hopefully we're not taking from that. So every year we make another little step. And I think having those books done throughout the year, there was also a point where it may have been about halfway through the year, maybe we were at 8 months or whatever. Joe was super stressed out. Everything is a disaster. He does this every year, every season. Everything is a disaster. Nothing is going to grow, blah, blah, blah. And me, I'm going to say cute little pregnant girl was walking out, and I'm like, oh, look, that broccoli's coming up, and that one's coming up. And Joe's looking at a, 200-foot row that has, 20 broccoli plants when there should have been like 200.
Right.
And, he's seeing complete failure. And, but I was able to look at those numbers and pull them up and say, hey, look, this is where we're at. This is what our net profit is right now. This is, our expenses, our sales and whatever. And when you look at that compared to what our sales were last year, like we're on par. We had hoped that 2016 we were going to do significantly more than we had the year before. It didn't really pan out that way for a number of reasons. But I was able to pull out those numbers and show him, like, look, we are on par to do as much, if not more, than we did the year before. And I get that, there's a lot of failure out there. Half the broccoli didn't work out. This didn't work out. But we're going to make as much, if not more, than we did last year. And I think that calmed him down a little bit to be able to see those numbers and be able to see, okay, yes, when I look at the field and I see empty spots on that row, that is a failure, but we're going to be okay. And that's kind of one of our new mantras, I kind of think, that we just constantly keep telling ourselves is, you know what? I'll tell you what, I don't know how we do it, but it always works out. Like, so that's our new thing is you know what? Like, it always works out. I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know how we manage to make it work, but we do. And, no matter how many failures and how many different things go wrong, we'll be okay. We're not making millions. We're not changing any new agricultural things or anything, but you know what? We're able to feed our family. We're able to take care of ourselves. We're able to feed our neighbors. We're able to pay our bills and keep our lights on and do it another day and get better every year. And that's kind of, all we can really hope to do.
I think being able to do that together.
Yeah, is a pain in the ass.
It is. I agree. But that's kind of where it's been, I think that's like where the pendulum is swinging back the other way, because, the last 20, 25 years, it's been, everybody's scattered.
Yeah.
And now, I think we're starting to understand we want to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, having Ella come in, does that scare you? I know with a lot of the things that I'm trying to do with Carolina Farm Trust and, especially with family.
Yeah.
What are you even doing that? You have 5 kids, go get your little corporate job, do your thing and take your 2 weeks of vacation a year. And I'm like, I don't think so. I can't do that.
Yeah. Well, you want to show, I think because of that passion of yours, you want to show your kids, like, you don't have to just do to make a paycheck to, like you always, no matter what point you are in your life, you still have an opportunity to try something new and push yourself a little bit more and get out there. And for me, I don't know why. It's funny that Joe and I have had such different dynamics of this, because normally I'm the warrior and I'm the think far ahead, and I'm the kind of the more, I say realistic, he says negative person. Depends on, but she hasn't made me more worried about what we have. I've been, like I said, my pregnancy is very easy. I've been pretty much peaceful about her and at peace with that relationship and with having a new person come in. Joe and I talked a lot about how that would work and how that would look and whether or not we can continue doing all of this.
Yeah.
And we've talked about what other Joe's looked for as jobs have come up that are in his field. Maybe that makes more sense to go get a salaried job managing another farm instead of doing this. And strangely enough, have said, you're making a living on this farm right now. So there's no reason for you to go leave here and go work for someone else doing the thing that you're already doing, that you already love, where you're able to make a living on it. We are very fortunate that our bills are very low. We don't have any debt. We're not getting any younger, but the two of us have very few skills anyway. So no matter what work if this doesn't work out, the skills that we have, we can do that in 5 years. So I can go wait tables in 5 years. I can go get a bartending job in 5 years. I can go work in another grocery store in 5 years. That's not going anywhere. So so we've made a commitment. What we would like to do at the bare minimum is to be able to have the next 5 years with Ella before school. So with both of us being here on the farm, that's our goal. If at that point she goes off to school and we feel like financially we're not making it work, we still have plenty of time to then save for college for her, save for retirement for us, and get off farm jobs, one or both of us or whatever. So we want to make that commitment to our goal and to our dream and see if we can't make that work. And we know we can at the very least feed ourselves and keep our lights on and be happy for the next 5 years and be together as a family and have Ella grow up with that and be able to have Ella have lunch with her dad as he comes in every day, and have that. And in 5 years when she goes off to school, we'll revisit whether or not this picture works anymore. But right now, that's our vision and our goal, and we're not really thinking past that. Ideally, it works out. Ideally, we can keep growing more and more, and we get to a point where maybe we can have some farm hands that stick around. That from year to year, we've got a few people working with us that we feel confident about that we can leave and entrust in the farm. I mean, one of the things that is hard. Having a family is, we can't really leave, especially during the height of the season. I mean, we've got birds we have to bring water to multiple times a day. They got to be moved. They got to be fed. You can't leave birds without water in 100-degree temperature. So we don't, we're lucky that, we have family that can sleep over and, but we need employees that we feel confident in before we can go anywhere. And that's something, having a kid that, can be a struggle is, how do we, when the family goes to the beach for a week, does dad not come with us because someone needs to be here. And that's happened, where just before we go, Joe's like, I just can't do it. I can't go. So that's something we'll have to figure out. But, I realized the other day as my father and my father-in-law and Joe were out here building this greenhouse that, before up until recently, we said Rowland's Row Family Farm, we've kind of dropped the family farm, but it really is, I think, more and more becoming a family farm. We are relying on our family to help us with projects like building a greenhouse, and they are here to help us when we have those things going on. And now with Ella, it is, really, neither of us inherited this farm. We didn't grow up on this farm, but it is a family farm, and that is important to us. And Ella being a part of this, even if it is for a short time, our goal is important to us.
Well, I think, as you said earlier, I do it all the time, so I don't. I'm very hard on myself, but I think both of you and Joe need to kind of take a bow on what we've seen today and what you've built.
Yeah.
And I hope you do look around, especially I think you kind of, when we were up at the chicken coop, it's looking at it. You built that.
Yeah.
That didn't exist before.
No, this didn't exist. I mean, when we got married here on this farm, I think about 6, not quite, I think it was 3 to 6 months after we bought it, which is insane. So we got, we had like an insane summer that year. We got engaged. I turned 30. I graduated from culinary school. We bought a farm. We just did it all within a 6-month period, and we got married here. And day in and day out, farming is so hard, and all you see is the pile of junk over there that needs to be done, the pile of junk that needs to be moved, the row of broccoli that there's only 20 broccolis coming up. You don't see all the things that you did do, and it's inevitably when other people come out here that we're able to really see it in their eyes. And when we moved here, there's so many things that have been done since we bought it and since we moved here. The high tunnel wasn't here. This greenhouse wasn't here. The barn wasn't here. There was dilapidated buildings that we've since removed. We pushed back a bunch of brush and opened up pasture. So we've opened up fields that were not available before. This year, in 2016, we actually did some work on the house, which is like a first. We were spending all of our time and money and energy on the farm. We actually finally dumped a little bit into the house, which is huge and exciting. But trying to see that big picture is tough when you do the work that we do, and it is so hard, and it is long days. We don't get the time to do what I think all young farmers that get into this think that you're going to do. Like, oh, we're gonna, at the end of the day, I'm going to sit with a beer in one of our rows and just like look out over my kingdom and reflect. Like, that does not happen. There's no beer drinking in fields. There's no making out in rows of vegetables. There's no like holding hands and taking an evening stroll on the farm with our dogs. Like, that does not happen. That's not realistic. That just doesn't happen. It's for me, when other people are here. We had my nieces out here who are 2 and 4 a few weeks ago. And it was like the day after Christmas. It was like 70 degrees and, gorgeous and hot. But like, we were just running around our farm with my nieces and my sister and my mom and Ella and having that romantic day on the farm. We were picking carrots with the girls and, and they're eating them and they've got mud all over their face and their hands from eating dirty carrots and they're loving them, and we're playing with baby chickens and we're throwing cabbages at each other, and we had that romantic day on the farm, seeing our farm through a 2 and 4 year old's eyes as being awesome and great. And we had that tunnel vision of, we weren't seeing that was rotten and that this was, needed to be weeded and this needed to be done and that. We just saw like all the great, cool things that were there, the good stuff, the fun stuff, and really enjoying it. And at the end of that day, and when they left, Joe said, this is why we do it, and that, one of the things that I have really learned over the past couple of years of farming that has come out of it for me is the importance of community. That is really a big part of why we've been able to do what we do. We have the restaurant accounts that we do because chefs like Clark have told other chefs, you need to get their chicken. They have the best chicken. You need to, oh, you're looking for peanuts, like you can get local peanuts. Talk to Dani and Joe, they grow them. We're at the farmer's market where, customers are telling us how great our stuff is and how they did this or that with it, or someone's posting on Facebook, their picture of their dinner and tagging us on it, and just being a part of a community is so important, especially when you do what we do, when you're in a career field where you're by yourself day in and day out. To have other farmers be so generous to two, 30-something city kids who've never had a garden, ask 8 bazillion questions, and answer them and share their knowledge. That community with the farmers and that sharing of knowledge and sharing of equipment. We have had so many farmers be so generous to us with their knowledge, with their equipment, with them coming out here to help us, or giving us advice and on certain things, and customers, shoppers, and chefs, having farm dinners for us or in our honor, or buying. I went into town yesterday to do deliveries, and we had all this Romanesco cauliflower that Joe just didn't want to sell because it had a little something wrong with it. It was a little off, a little black spot or a little this or that, and I was all, so I said, let's load it in the car. Let's bring it to the chefs. Let's say, hey, take a look at this. You want some? You can have it. Let me know. You can see it. You can pick it out. You can make a decision for yourself if it's something that you can work with. Because we didn't feel like comfortable putting it on our list that week because we thought, we don't want to bring this to you and you be disappointed and you feel like you have to take it because you already ordered it and it's on your invoice, and so you got to pay for it. And several of them, all the chefs that were there, that was the chef of the restaurant, came out, looked at it and said, I would have sold this for you, took it, bought it right out of the truck. And we're, so having that support from them, even, showing up with something saying, hey, do you think you can work with this? And then saying, yeah, I can, absolutely. There have been times where I've, to mention Clark again, I a couple years ago, we had a ton of tomatoes, and I sent Clark a message like, look, dude, I got hundreds of pounds of tomatoes. They're gonna go. I'd like to move them. I'll make you a sweet deal. And he took hundreds of pounds of tomatoes. He didn't order them. I called him and said, I need to move these tomatoes. Right. And he said, I will take them. I will find a home for them. And we can't do those sorts of things without our community members, without our chefs, without our customers. Without that, we couldn't be doing any of what we're doing. And that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, community is. Doing these dinners is always very stressful for me because when we talk to the chef, we talk to the farmer. Okay, we have a great idea. That's like, well, is anyone gonna come?
Does anyone else think it's a good idea? Absolutely.
And Clark's been so influential, for me. But tonight, it's, I talked to him the other day, 73 people, and I'm just, really?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the, so that's, again, we've done these about 5 or 6 times, and this is our biggest turnout. And I do think Clark and you guys are the reason why.
Yeah.
Because of the community relationships that you have. So being that's the dinners tonight, and we're, what we're trying to do is finish this thing up. So the big question I have for you is, did Joe come on budget with this grandiose greenhouse?
No, not even close. Not even close. Yeah, when he pitched this whole greenhouse thing to me, I think he was like, it'll be like a couple $1,000s. Like, we'll have this built for, it'll be a couple $1,000s. Like, $1,200, $1,500, $2,000. Yeah, like not even close. But luckily, he, the other day we were discussing this very topic,
right? And
he said, I need to start realizing that everything's about twice what I think.
Yeah.
So he's slowly starting to get it. There's a lot of little things like that. He's slowly starting to kind of realize that, like, okay, it also, I think originally it was like, yeah, we'll have it built in a weekend. Like, it's been 6 weeks, which not every day in and day out. And granted, we've had to, coordinate schedules with, with people who are helping us out. And we were able, we didn't hire people to build it. So it's, coordinating the schedules and, having, we have this work crew of retired, almost 70-year-olds. So, my dad and Joe's stepdad and the 3 of them out here, a couple days a week, just getting what they could get done. And, my dad bringing his other retired friend over and
you're giving him something to do.
I tell people all the time, I say it all the time. If you buy a farm or just get, if you're a young couple buying a new home, you need some old retired dudes because they just bought their retired home. It's brand new and doesn't need anything fixed, and they don't have any jobs, and they don't want to sit around home with their wife all day. Right. They need a project. That is who you need. You don't want your other buddy, your other hipster friend who is like living in a yurt and needs he's not helping you. He's busy.
Right.
You need the old retired dude who doesn't have anything to do and wants to come fix things. The other thing is that, we don't have these skills that I think my dad could have been an electrician. Right. He did all the electrical work in here. He's done electrical work he did our barn. He's done things in the house. We don't have that skill. And, farming requires so much more than just knowing how to plant crops or take care of animals. You have to have small engine mechanic skills. You have to have construction skills. You have to have electrical skills. And we are barely good at growing stuff, right. Let alone anything else.
Yeah.
So, having people around you that have these skills is really important. Otherwise, you're spending a lot of time and money trying to figure it out on your own. A lot of money getting someone else, hired to do it, and they're even worse to work with because they take forever to get out here too. So having people around you that you can call on, we've got great neighbors who, Joe the other day went over at 7:00 at night to one of our neighbors' house. Hey, Mike, I just shot 2 deer. I need your help to come help me break them down because, it's 7:00 at night. I got to get them broken down. I've only done this a few times. And sure enough, Mike comes over 7:00 at night and, and is out there in our barn in, probably 20-degree weather helping Joe break down a deer, 2 deer. So, having those people, going back to community, having those people around you who can help you, who are willing to help you, who get what you're doing, who believe in you, and are willing to support you in all of your ridiculous endeavors at all times of day and night is super important. We wouldn't be able to do it without that support of our neighbors and our friends and our chefs and our family. It wouldn't happen.
Well, thank you so much for letting us invade your farm for the day.
Yeah.
And seeing you and Joe at it. Ella's beautiful, and I love hearing you talk about her and kind of your ideology about the future with her.
Everything is everything seems a little brighter and shinier with her here now. For me, at least. We've talked a lot about that. How everything just seems a little newer and a little brighter and a little shinier. You look at things differently. You just really do. And I think it's hopefully helping us to look at things with a little bit more lightheartedness and keeping things in focus. That the farm is important, and it is what feeds our family. But we're really trying to also focus on our family as well, and finding that quality of life and that balance. And she's really helping us do that, to not just spend. It's easy when you're just a young couple to come in at 10 o'clock at night and not skip lunch or work all day. It's easy to do that. It's easy for that to happen. But when there's another little being there that you want to spend time with, and you want also to not, it goes back to the not hating this. Nothing will make her hate farming more than if it's what's taking her daddy away.
Right.
If it's she doesn't ever see him because he's always doing this, that, or he's always stressed out because of that. And so finding that balance has become more and more of a focus for us with her being here.
Well, what I saw today, and we're really, reflecting now, when we were up at the chicken coop and you had her in your arms,
passed out.
She was just sleeping.
Yeah.
And what the visual for me is A, she's very comfortable.
Yeah.
And number two, I think she is very comfortable and agrees with the decisions you're making.
Yeah.
She was just I'm chilling.
Yeah, she's a good baby. She's an easy baby. She likes being around people, which is good, because I could see, a couple of years from now at a farmer's market, some customers be like, I'm going to take Ella over here to get her a popsicle, and off she'll go, so.
Well, thank you. And I'm so excited about tonight.
Yeah,
and,
we are too.
The turnout's there, so hopefully we can get this thing wrapped up for you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.